I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're listening to Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 14 preview. So, to start us off, I got a quick update of our head-to-head pick'ems game. I had a pretty bad week, so Cal made up a few points on me, but luckily for me, he didn't do overly well either. I scored only 5 points this week, but Cal only got 8, giving us a total score of me with 110 and Callan with 104.
Chipping away.
That gap closes a little bit each
chipping
week.
away.
It was 11, then it was 9, now it's only 6. He's closing in on me, to say the least.
Chipping away. Like New England in the Super Bowl against Atlanta. Just kicking field goals.
But we got a few pretty big differences in this week, so it should be a big decider week. So we'll jump straight into those games. First up, we have Thursday Night Football with the Steelers heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Now, of course, I have the Vikings in this one, and Callan has the Steelers. He's given up hope in the Vikings, and I don't blame him at all.
I'm very upset with the Vikings. I did a Sunday parlay. I picked every game right except one.
Screwed him right out of $500.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I'm never picking them again.
Especially
at least for the rest of this year.
Especially being in Minnesota, I don't see us dropping this game. The Steelers are such a hit or miss team.
Mm-hmm.
I've been calling them bad all year, and they're not necessarily a bad team, but they're just not the team they used to be. Ben Roethlisberger is so beat up. I think there was some rumors spreading around that he told people this is his last season.
Yeah,
and
it hasn't really been confirmed, but pretty much from Roethlisberger himself, he's been telling teammates that this is his last year in Pittsburgh.
And I'm not surprised.
Which I don't know means if he's retiring or he's going to another team.
He should have retired.
He should probably just retire while he's on top.
Exactly.
I mean, there's not anything that's really dragging his legacy down right now.
I know the loss to the Browns was rough last year, but I think he should have retired last year after a playoff appearance because it's not looking good for a playoff appearance for them this year. He hasn't played well, and I mean, look at Breeze. Look at how poorly Breeze went out when he looked like he could barely throw the ball.
Right, and that's what I mean about his legacy still being intact. Is he's not, if he keeps playing at least 41, 42, and he's been on 3 or 4 teams, and it's like, oh man, he really, fell off there at the end. Whereas if he calls it now, he's got a good flat ending.
Exactly, yeah.
Something to hang his hat on. Tail end to go into the Hall of Fame instead of a kind of forcible, disaster of an end of a career.
I agree. But on to this actual game, as for this actual game.
This is an elimination game.
Pretty much for
both teams. I mean,
I think that there's still situations where both these teams can make the
neither
playoffs
are
with a loss.
mathematically eliminated, but a loss on either side.
I will say I'm a
devastating.
little nervous for this game, a little more than I usually am, because it's looking like we are going to be missing Cook again for the second week in a row, and also missing Thielen now with the ankle
sprain.
Injury he had against the.
On Good Morning Football, they said pretty much Cook and Thielen are out.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
They didn't rule them, but they said it was more than likely.
But luckily, one thing that is looking up for me is I think we're going to get Kendricks and possibly even Barr back, which is huge for that defense. And I am licking my lips with Justin Jefferson against that secondary. So I think overall we'll still be fine. We'll still pick up a win, but I'm definitely a tad more nervous than usual, I won't lie. So next up, we got the Falcons heading to Carolina to take on the Panthers. And Kel and I both have the Panthers in this one. After watching how the Falcons played against the Bucs last week, which I'm not going to say they played terrible because they kept that game a lot closer than people thought, but they don't look like a winning football team. I think they need, again with Roethlisberger, or similar to Roethlisberger I should say, I think Matt Ryan's time is up.
I think that's more his time's up in Atlanta. I think he could go somewhere and start for a few more years.
You do?
Yeah, I think if he gets a solid team around him, if he went somewhere like, everybody seems to pick this, but somewhere like Indianapolis, where they got solid all-around offense, running game, receivers, defense. It seems like all the veteran quarterbacks want to go there. Like Phillip Rivers went there last year, Wentz this year.
I could see something like that.
Not saying to Indianapolis, but a situation like Indianapolis with a team that's built like that has a lot of the pieces, solidified around the quarterback instead of building blocks and young pieces around him. Like, I guess Cordell Patterson's that young, but Kyle Pitts is young. Calvin Ridley, even though he's not playing, is young.
He's going to come back and still only be in his fourth season.
Yeah, he'll probably come back next year. It's looking like he's probably not come back this year, which why would you now?
And they've had a lot of young receivers step up, which I really like to see.
Russell Gage
has stepped up.
Olamide Zacchaeus? Is it
Zacchaeus?
Olamide Zacchaeus, yeah.
I have no idea. But all of those guys have stepped up. They, of course, have Kyle Pitts, who you mentioned.
And it looks like Kyle Pitts has been targeted by defenses.
Oh, definitely.
Because he has not had the big games that he had early on, not only when he was early on, but when Ridley was playing also.
And especially with Ridley being out, I'm surprised Hayden Hurst is a guy I'm surprised they haven't used a lot more in that offense. Mm-hmm. Is he hurt?
No, he's just kind of busted. I'm
not sure exactly, because he was really good, and then they drafted Kyle Pitts.
First-round pick?
I don't know if that was like a morale hit or something, but especially the fact that they're missing so many receivers now, I'm surprised they're not just running double tight end across the board, helping out that run game. And
I don't know. Hayden Hurst didn't fit in Baltimore, and not seem to be working in Atlanta. I don't know. It never really heard anything negative about him. Just didn't seem to work out.
As for the Panthers, I don't think they're going to win this game because they're overly good. I think that they're just the better team in this situation. Cam's coming down to earth a little more and realizing what he's still able to do and what he's able to not do anymore. And overall, I think they just have the more talented team.
And I picked Carolina because they just fired their offensive coordinator, which if you go by the rules of betting, the team that fires the offensive coordinator will always win the next game.
That's true, and coming off of a bye week, it's looking good for the Panthers. Next up, we got a AFC East divisional matchup, West divisional matchup, let me correct that, with the Raiders heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, and another split here. I have the Chiefs in this one, and Callan has the Raiders.
Well, I've noticed that the Raiders seem to lose games they should win, and win games they should lose. I wasn't really sure about this one, but the Chiefs has won 6 straight against the Raiders, so I feel like this is a game they should lose, so I picked the Raiders. And again, how many times I've said this year, the Chiefs are a bad fucking team, and they keep getting bailed out by lucky football and bad football by the other team. That pick 6 that Teddy threw, he threw right to Dirty Dan Sorensen, who's one of the worst coverage guys in the NFL, and
with a passion,
yet gets more interceptions and pick 6s than anyone I've seen. You want to talk about bang for your buck? This guy has the talent of a 1-cent penny, and you're getting $10 out of him, it seems like.
I hate Daniel Sorensen with a passion. But though I totally agree with everything you just said, I think the Chiefs are going to win because I think they're just going to get bailed out again. The Raiders are such a cluster of a team. All of their drama, all of their firings have finally really kind of gotten to them, and you can tell with the way they've been playing, which hasn't been overly awful by any means, but it's just not what they were playing earlier in the season with guys like Gruden. Waller's been on and off beat up when they had Ruggs in that receiving core. So I think that the Chiefs are going to get bailed out again. I see a close game that comes down to one huge play. I don't know if it'll be when the Chiefs are on defense or when the Raiders are on defense. But exactly, I think they just get bailed out again.
They probably will.
They play just well enough to pick up a win.
The Raiders, like I said, they go and they beat Dallas in Dallas on Thanksgiving, the game they shouldn't have won. But then they go and lose to Washington in Vegas, a game they should have won.
The Raiders are a cluster.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out the Raiders, but I think a divisional game, I think they'll strike on this chance to beat a downtrodden Chiefs team, as long as luck doesn't bail them out.
Next up, we have another AFC divisional matchup in the North this time. We got the Ravens heading to Cleveland to take on the Browns, and yet another split. I have the Browns in this one, and Kellen has the Ravens. After watching the past 2 weeks with Lamar, I just don't trust him. I mean, you go from throwing 4 interceptions one week and then you don't get much better the next week and you lose a divisional game. Now, the Browns are, of course, nearly as bad as the Raiders with how on and off they are. Baker's been going through that injury, but they're coming off a bye week, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he'll be getting a little better. He'll feel at least good enough to kind of get a good game in. It's in Cleveland. I like that. Is Kareem Hunt back?
I believe so, yes.
I think Kareem Hunt might be back, so that's another big pickup for them. Again, very close game, just as all divisional games usually are, but I see the Browns picking up a win here.
I just still am not sure with Baker's injury. They did have the bye week for him to rest it, but the way Baltimore's defense plays, this one was kind of a toss-up, being a divisional game. I just went with Baltimore because they're just, Cleveland seems more beat up than Baltimore, which is almost crazy to say, with as many injuries
impressive.
as Baltimore's had. But boy, it's just they haven't had the injuries to the quarterbacks the way that Cleveland has, and that's
exactly.
I think the factor there.
You kind of forget how many injuries Baltimore has because they all happen before the season.
Right, they haven't had
started.
a whole lot of in-season injuries. They all happen preseason and training.
They're all tearing ACLs. They need to get some better training facilities there, trainers. Next up, we have another divisional matchup. I thought it wasn't, but it's another divisional matchup with the Cowboys heading to Washington to take on the football team. Cal and I both have the football team in this one, and Callan has them marked as his upset. Mm-hmm. Now, we, of course, spent a lot of time last episode talking about Taylor Heineke, and when you play with that much heart, I think you can beat out talent. Callan always brings it up. I think heart beats out bad coaching. Mm-hmm. So I just see Washington picking up a win here.
I do too, for those exact reasons. You almost read my mind there, because yes, the Heineke's got definitely doesn't have all the talent, but the thing that the Favre is the heart and the want to play and the will to win. And hey, just like with Belichick, he just knows how to get W's. That's just what it is.
That's all you need. Doesn't have to look flashy. Doesn't have to be a blowout.
Nope, just gotta get W's. Plus, I really like Ron Rivera as a coach, and y'all know my feelings Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's a very good coach, and again, I think that Rivera has a chance, a good, likely chance to out-coach McCarthy. It's just if talent bails out the Cowboys again.
Yep.
Which it could.
Another big decider for me in this one was it being in Washington. I think that gives
and outside of Dallas.
I think that gives them a big advantage. Next up, we got another divisional matchup, jam-packed this week, with the Jags heading to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Cal and I both have the Titans in this one. I kind of wanted to pick the Jags. I almost picked them. I almost marked them as my upset. But after watching them last week, I just can't. I think that they're going to make this game a lot closer than a lot of people expect.
Didn't the Jags beat the Titans earlier this year? Was that team they beat?
No, I don't think so, because they saw
Derrick. Who did they surprise?
I think they saw Derrick Henry
Maybe it was was it the Colts they surprised?
The Bills. Is that who you're thinking of?
No, the Jaguars surprised a divisional team too.
Oh, then maybe it was. I can't remember exactly.
That was my only thought, was that they surprised one of their divisional opponents. I thought it was the Titans earlier this year, which made me think well, they're not going to fall for that same trick twice. They're not going to overlook the Jags twice. I don't think you should overlook the Jags at all, really, because one thing about a young team is they'll have fight. You give them the chance, they're going to fight you,
Yeah.
They're not like a bad team, they're not like a veteran team that has a bad record that can really be downtrodden. I think Jacksonville kind of knew they weren't going to be very good this year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's rebuild mode, to say the least, down in Jacksonville. I wanted to do it so bad. There's a couple of reasons.
That's why I didn't make Tennessee my lock.
Exactly. You got that young talent. You got Trevor Lawrence, who's hungry to get some more wins. You got the Titans without Derrick Henry. I just couldn't, though. I
did the Tennessee lock against it was the Texans that beat them.
Yeah,
beat the Titans.
Yeah, that's
because it was my lock. I said it was like Tennessee's bye week. Anyways, I knew something happened to Tennessee like that. And they're not going to let it happen to them again. It wasn't Jacksonville. It was Houston that surprised them. But because they got surprised, they won't get surprised again. They will not overlook the Jaguars because they overlooked the Texans and got beat. And I don't think they'll let that happen again. Vrabel won't let that happen again.
Yeah,
he's a Belichick disciple.
Vrabel's a good coach. I like
yeah.
Vrabel. Next up, we have a non-divisional matchup.
Oh, a non-division.
Took us a while, but we finally got back to the non-divisional matchups. We got the Bills heading to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs, and Cal and I both have the Bills in this one. It makes me a little nervous to make this pick after watching them against the Patriots.
Yeah, I know. we made these picks yesterday.
Overall, I think the Bills still end up picking up this win, even after watching them play yesterday. Very big toss-up here. Usually you see toss-up between bad teams, but this one's toss-up between good teams. I think it's going to be really close. It should be a pretty exciting game to watch, but I think the Bills are going to be heated after that game because every player, every fan, everybody watching the NFL in general knows that the Bills should have picked up a win here, or win in that game. So I think they will pick up a win here.
Yeah, you know, the Bucs have a really good rushing defense, but their passing defense is their weak point. And obviously the Bills are a passing team. This is almost becoming a must-win for the Bills.
Kind of.
At 8-5 now. I mean, New England's 2 games ahead of them in the East. I mean,
7-5.
7-5? Yeah, jeez. Buffalo fall from grace almost. I mean, they were Super Bowl contenders, and they're got to fight for a playoff spot now. They lose this week.
It's not looking good for them.
No, they might fall out, so they almost have to win. Tampa Bay, not so much. So maybe just that, fight or flight, survival mode might kick in. But I do think that Buffalo has the upper hand because of the passing.
Yeah.
I think that they'll be able to pass on Tampa Bay because of their weak corners. And, obviously Buffalo's strong point is passing, not the running game. And Buccaneers' defensive strong point is run defense. Yeah. So the matchup seems to lean towards Buffalo. But you got Brady on the other side.
The Brady versus the Bills defense.
Plus, Brady does love to beat the Bills.
That's a fun thing for me to watch. Or that's the big thing for me to watch is Brady versus the Bills defense.
The poor Bills. They got to go face the Patriots without Brady. And now they got to go face the Bradys. The Bills I feel like this is a nightmare for the Bills. Like, they're like, oh my God, they had the chance to take out both of their mortal enemies and could possibly get killed by both of them.
Sean McDermott hasn't slept in weeks. It's just awful for him.
You could tell. It looked like it last night.
But definitely a show-me game for the Bills. Next up, back to our divisional matchups, of course. It was a short break. This is a big one here. We got the Bears heading to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Callan, of course, has the Packers as his lock, and I have the Bears as my upset. So you want to talk about big implications for our pick'em game. This is a huge one.
I think this is the first time this year I've made Green Bay my lock, and I got all the confidence in the world right now. Rodgers looked good coming off of that Rams game. They had a week to heal up. There's a potential that we get Jairi, Za'Darius, and Bakhtiari back this week.
Oh, I thought Jairi was out for the season.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. There's a chance we get all 3 back this week. I mean, the Packers are getting healthy at the right time. Rodgers is getting hot. Man, and the Bears are they're going down.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not, super confident in this. But there are a lot of factors that I kind of like about it. I didn't know all those guys were coming back, but
potentially. It's not for sure.
But one big thing is I was really excited to see Darnell Mooney against the Packers. He hasn't really shown up against the Packers big time, but he had a quiet week last week. So I'm really looking for him to kind of show back up and have a big week. Dalton versus the Packers is going to be fun to see. And the biggest thing is it is hard to beat a team twice in one NFL season. In those divisional matchups, you see a lot of splits happen because it's so hard to beat a team twice. So I don't know, it's kind of a feeling thing. I'm not overly confident about it. There's a ton of factors going against me, but it's just one of those where I looked at it and I said, why not? I think the Bears do have a chance.
The only thing I worry about here is that just like a couple weeks ago, this is the Bears Super Bowl. Just like the Vikings, they played their Super Bowl against Green Bay and played their best game. So I expect the Bears' best game. I do. It's just, I still think that our best, their best game is not as good as our decent game.
Yeah.
The Vikings are a different story. The Vikings have a little more talent, so when they played their best game, it was much more difficult. The Bears just seem like a kind of a clusterfuck of team with Dalton and Fields and Nagy basically being on the outs. But
I would be amazed if Nagy was still there. I think he'll finish this year. I don't think he's going to be gone before the end.
Yeah.
But once next year comes around, or this coming off season, I think that Nagy
he
will
almost
be gone.
has to be gone. The way that the fans they have fire Nagy chants during the game.
They do.
Like, gee whiz. I mean, I that's just crazy. I thought there were fire chants like only in like WWE, you know. I've never seen the stadium actually get rocking for a fire Nagy chant. It's just crazy. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to have that much like hatred and dislike towards you.
Khalil Mack is still out. That's what I was checking right
Khalil
there.
Mack's
I want to see
on
if
injury
Khalil Mack
reserve.
was
No,
still out.
He's out for the year. He had surgery.
Oh, that sucks. That's
Yeah.
a big, big hit right there because they needed Khalil Mack. But still, overall, on that Bears defense, I think there's a lot of young developing players that's going to be fun to see. Last time the Packers faced the Bears, he got Leonard Floyd with the little pump fake thing where Leonard Floyd totally jumped and Rodgers ran into the end zone.
Or you mean Roquan Smith?
No, their edge rusher.
Leonard Floyd plays for the Rams now.
Did I do that again? So who's theirs? I do this every time between the Bears and the Rams.
Their edge guy?
Yeah, who's the one they got then?
Robert
From the
Quinn?
Rams. Robert Quinn.
Oh,
My God,
you got it because you get them mixed up.
I do it
because
every time without fail. I cannot remember which one of those two are on which. But he got Robert Quinn with that pump fake and ran to the end zone.
Yeah,
If I'm not
okay.
mistaken, that's when he did that. I own you. I still effing own you, Chicago.
He did.
So after doing that, that was so big. Chicago's going to be pissed. I can see that defense stepping up big time.
You know, I forgot about that. I'm not going to lie. I forgot about that. About him running in and saying that he owns the Bears. That could fire him up a little bit.
That pisses.
If I was Nagy, I would just be playing that clip all day. At Hallis Hall, just that little 10-second clip just rolling over and over. And now I think about it, I hope they're not, because that would piss me off and make me want to just go kick the shit out of that team.
That was my.
So
I'll say it again. I don't have a ton of confidence behind this pick, but that was my one big thing that I was like, they are going to be pissed and ready to play this game.
Or he'll just go in and own them again and just show why he's majority owner of the Chicago Bears.
That's just as, if not more likely. So next up, we got another divisional matchup, of course, with the Rams heading to Arizona to take on the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. Another split as well. I have the Cardinals in this one, and Kellen has the Rams. I just cannot trust the Rams after watching them play. Like, of course, they played well against the Jags, because who's not going to play well against the Jags? But when they face better teams, or even just decent teams, they don't look like they're... they just don't look complete. It's kind of like, when you see these super teams, you see it in the NBA a lot, where they're all so power hungry, talent hungry, ball in hand hungry, however you want to say it, is they just can't play well together. And that's kind of the feeling I get from the Rams, because unless they go against a team where they can totally just destroy them on all aspects and spread the ball around the way you want to, they just don't play well. So I got the Cardinals in this one.
And I went with your strategy. I picked the Rams because I need the Cardinals to lose.
It's a good strategy.
So
it gives you a reason to root for them even more.
And
especially in these toss-up games like this. 'Cause this game could fall either way. I don't argue that at all.
Yeah, so I need the Cardinals to lose. The Rams do look like a team that don't have role players. They look like a team that has 6 superstar players and no role players and no depth.
Role players and role positions even are the most important thing in the NFL by far. And every Super Bowl team, every superstar team, or every Super Bowl team, every good team you see in the NFL has those quality middle of the pack players.
Right. I mean, look at the Patriots right now. Who is their superstar? can you name a superstar on that team?
No, but just across the board, everywhere you look, you're
Exactly.
like, wow, that's a solid player.
This reminds me a little bit of the Eagles from a few years ago when they had Vic and Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson and I don't know, I guess it was a little more than a few years ago.
That's more than a few years ago.
But
I assumed you were going 2017.
No, that's like 2010, 2011. But they had remember Nandi Asamoah?
Yeah.
Like they had the top corners and signed. They ended up going 7-9 that year. They called themselves the Dream Team because they went and signed all these top fast guys, and it doesn't work in the NFL. That just doesn't work. I don't know. It's so crazy. Everywhere else, it mostly works. NBA, baseball. Don't really watch hockey enough to give a good point, but you get these superstar players, and you're almost always in the playoffs, in finals contention, in World Series contention.
But you're never there.
But then it seems like you do it in the NFL, and these guys don't even... Because these teams fall apart.
Well, then especially even if they do make it to the playoffs, then all that ego, all that want of the ball doubles because now you're on the biggest stage. You're in the playoffs,
and you want that ring.
You want that ring, and then they start stumbling over each other. And you can tell that
they
happens.
all want that ring instead of they all separately want that ring.
They all want the ring.
All want that ring as one team.
Yeah, they don't want the ring because they won as a team. They want the ring because they made the team win. And it just doesn't work. You see it all the time. So, moving on to our quick kicks now. We'll start with the Saints going to New York to take on the Jets. Cal and I both have the Jets in this one. Zach Wilson looked good last week, even though he didn't pick up the win, so I think he'll continue off that momentum. And the Saints are just too beat up.
Yeah, Saints are just too beat up. It looks like they're going back to Trevor Siemian. And, Zach Wilson did play well for the Jets, but you're going against the Minshew mania.
There's no way to win.
What are you going to do? I mean, but otherwise, I thought Wilson looked good, and I think that he could beat this team.
Yep. Next up, we have our London game of the week.
Got the London game.
Seahawks heading to Houston to take on the Texans. Seahawks in our London game for the first time this year. Cal and I both do have the Seahawks in this one. I think the Seahawks are still kind of repairing themselves as a team, as well as Russell Wilson still healing from that finger injury. But I think they still pick up a win against this beat-up Houston team who hasn't been able to prove themselves.
Unfortunately, Houston looks pretty checked out. It looks like DM3 is going to get the start, which could add a little spark because, a little young guy going in there. But, Russ looked much better last week. Obviously, his best game since his return from injury. And in every week, it's just been a little bit better. So I see Russ going and just dominating over Houston. He really should.
Agreed. Next up for the quick kicks, we got the Giants heading to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. I have the Chargers as my lock this week, and Kellen has the Giants in this one. This is actually a kind of exciting matchup, but we just quick kicked it because we don't know a ton about either of these teams, and it's a non-conference game. But I think the Giants will continue to play some stellar defense, but that offense just has not been able to show me anything to make them want to pick them. And I think that the Chargers offense is good enough that they'll be able to put some points up on that Giants defense. And with how bad the Giants offense is, all you need is some points. So
the Chargers are like the Raiders. They lose games they should win, and win games they should lose. I thought Cincinnati was just going to wipe the floor with them, and they beat Cincinnati, and then they lost to Denver in a terrible showing 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
I can't figure this team out. They should go in and just rock the Giants. But the Giants are starting his boy Jake Fromm, signed fresh off the Bills practice squad because Glennon's got a concussion and Daniel Jones has some sort of broken neck. So it's Jake Fromm time in New York.
Jake Fromm, the Georgia boy.
And this should be a game that the Chargers should win. So obviously the Giants are my pick.
If they win that game, it is all behind defense.
Or Jake Fromm.
Hopefully Jake Fromm. I'd love to see that. Next up, we got the Lions heading to Denver to take on the Broncos, and yet another split with me taking the Broncos and Callan taking the Lions.
MCDC guy's first win. He's rolling now. he ain't giving up. They're not gonna lose now for a while. That's just he's got him on a roll. He got that momentum rolling.
I agree with that.
Motor City Dan Campbell, that energy. Oh man, that's like a big old hydro generator going now.
It's got the water. That's all
it's
it needed.
going now. That's all it needed.
No, I've been saying it all year that I think once the Lions get a win, they'll continue to win. And to be honest, I do believe that this is just a little bit of a punishment pick because I'm a little mad at the Lions. Happy they got their first win. Just a little mad at who they got it against, of course. And then finally, for NFL Week 14, we got the 49ers heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. And Cal and I both have the Bengals in this one. They did not look great last week, but I think they'll pick it up a little bit. And I hate to keep doing it because I actually do think the Bengals will win this game. But man, would it help if the Bengals could beat the Niners for the Vikings playoff chances. But I do actually think the Bengals will win this game.
I think that the Bengals will win too. I think they had a good chance to win last week, and it just kind of fell out of their hands, literally with the fumble. So I think as long as they can get a lead and build up, get ahead, Cincinnati does really good once they have a lead, especially with Joe Mixon able to run that ball. I think they'll get an early lead and be able to keep San Francisco
definitely
put away.
Being in Cincinnati also definitely helps.
So, and you have a West Coast team going to the East Coast to play a noon game. So you gotta pick the Bengals.
I should have just kept talking. So that was our NFL Week 14 preview. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, don't forget,
eat the W.